What up, everyone? This is Mr. Lord, Dr. Professor, Dark Joker, with another edition of When, Where, Pick, and Dare, where I pick games for the various games that are occurring tomorrow. Whether it's football, baseball, basketball, basically whatever games I want to pick, I will pick them. With all that being said, on with the video. College men's basketball. St. John's Red Storm versus Seton Hall Pirates. Uh, St. John's has a 66.6% chance to win. Seton Hall's a 33.4% chance to win. This is at Seton Hall. St. John's is 18 nation, 24-6 record. Seton Hall is unranked, 20-10 record. For stats, St. John's has more points per game, points against, higher field goal percentage, more rebounds per game, assists per game. Seton Hall has more blocks per game and steals per game. The only stat that's really big difference is points per game. It's a 11.7 difference in favor of St. John's. The other stats are pretty close. Now, home field advantage probably won't matter much for this game because it's St. John's and Seton Hall. They're pretty small schools, pretty small fan bases. So I think with the points per game advantage, which I think will matter, I think St. John's will beat Seton Hall tomorrow. Miami, Ohio RedHawks versus Ohio Bobcats. Miami, Ohio is a 72.7% chance to win, and Ohio has a 27.3% chance to win. This is at Ohio. Miami, Ohio's 19 nation, 30-0 record. Ohio is unranked, 15-15 record. For stats, Miami, Ohio has more points per game. Ohio has more points against. Miami, Ohio has higher field goal percentage. It has more rebounds per game, assists per game. Ohio has more blocks per game, and Miami, Ohio has more steals per game. The only stat that's really big difference is points per game. It's a 13.3 difference in favor of Miami, Ohio. The rest are pretty close. Now, home field advantage, I don't think it's going to matter here. I don't think Miami, Ohio, and Ohio have big fan bases. Now, Miami, Ohio is undefeated. That means something that's definitely interesting to make it this far undefeated. So with the points per game advantage, I think Miami, Ohio beats Ohio tomorrow. College women's basketball. Clemson Tigers versus Duke Blue Devils. Uh, this is part of the quarterfinals of the ACC tournament. Clemson's unranked 21-10 record. Duke is 13 nation, 21-8 record. For stats, Duke has more points per game, points against, higher field goal percentage, more rebounds per game, assists per game, blocks per game, and steals per game. Now, this game, is in Duluth, Georgia. Obviously closer game for Clemson. Now, I don't think it's gonna matter much. I mean, Duke 13 nation. Basically all the stats for Duke are higher than Clemson neutral site. So yeah, I think Duke will beat Clemson tomorrow. Notre Dame Fighting Irish versus NC State Wolfpack. This is part of the quarterfinals of the ACC tournament. So Notre Dame's unranked 21-9 record. NC State's unranked 20-9 record. For stats, Notre Dame has more points per game. NC State has more points against. Notre Dame has a higher field goal percentage. NC State has more rebounds per game. Notre Dame has more assists per game. NC State has more blocks per game, and Notre Dame has more steals per game. These stats are very close. Yeah, so it's gonna be a big game. Yeah, it could be interesting. Obviously, Georgia far away from both teams, so I don't know how big of a crowd each one's gonna have. So with Notre Dame having more points per game, NC State having more points against, and Notre Dame also having higher field goal percentage. Like based on all those stats, I think Notre Dame will beat NC State tomorrow. Syracuse Orange versus Louisville Cardinals. Uh, this is part of the quarterfinals of the ACC tournament. Syracuse is unranked, 23-7 record. Louisville's 12 in nation, 25-6 record. For stats, Louisville's more points per game. Syracuse has more points against. Louisville's a higher field goal percentage. Syracuse has more rebounds per game. Louisville has more assists per game. Syracuse has more blocks per game and steals per game. These stats are pretty close. Now, due to the distance to Duluth, Georgia for these two schools, I don't think home field advantage is going to matter much. Now, Louisville having more wins, less losses, and being 12th in the nation, that matters. So I think Louisville will beat Syracuse tomorrow. Virginia Tech Hokies versus North Carolina Tar Heels. This is part of the quarterfinals of the ACC tournament. Virginia Tech's unranked 23-8 record. North Carolina's 16 nation, 25-6 record. For stats, North Carolina has more points per game. Virginia Tech has more points against. North Carolina has a higher field goal percentage. Virginia Tech has more rebounds per game. North Carolina has more assists per game. Virginia Tech has more blocks per game. North Carolina has more steals per game. These stats are pretty close. Now, due to distance, I don't think home field advantage is going to matter because it's in Duluth, Georgia. Now, North Carolina being 16 nation, having more wins, less losses, that matters. So I think North Carolina is going to beat Virginia Tech tomorrow. Kansas State Wildcats versus Oklahoma State Cowboys. This is part of the quarterfinals of the Big 12 tournament. So Kansas State's unranked 17-16 record. Oklahoma State's unranked 23-8 record. For stats, Oklahoma State has more points per game. Kansas State has more points against. Oklahoma State has a higher field goal percentage and has more rebounds per game, assists per game, blocks per game, and steals per game. The only stat that's really a big difference is points per game. It's a 11.4 difference in favor of Oklahoma State. Now this is in Kansas City, Missouri, so who knows how much home field advantage will matter here, but that points per game difference definitely matters. So I think Oklahoma State will beat Kansas tomorrow. Kansas State tomorrow. BYU Cougars versus TCU Horned Frogs. This is part of the quarterfinals of the Big 12 tournament. BYU is unranked, 22-10 record. TCU is 10 nation, 27-4 record. For stats, TCU is more points per game. BYU is more points against. TCU is a higher field goal percentage, has more rebounds per game, assists per game, blocks per game, and BYU is more steals per game. So this game's in Kansas City, Missouri. I don't think home field advantage will matter here. Now, TCU having less losses, more wins, being number 10 nation while BYU is unranked, that matters. And TCU is more points per game and BYU is more points against. So with all that, I think TCU will beat BYU tomorrow. Arizona State Sun Devils versus West Virginia Mountaineers. This is part of the quarterfinals of the ACC tournament. Arizona is unranked, 24-9 record. West Virginia's 15 nation, 24-6 record. For stats, West Virginia has more points per game. Arizona State has more points against. West Virginia has a higher field goal percentages. And there's more rebounds per game, assists per game. Arizona State has more blocks per game, and West Virginia has more steals per game. The only stat that's really big difference is points per game. It's a 11.4 difference in favor of West Virginia. Now with this being Kansas City, I definitely do not think home field advantage matters here. Pretty far for both teams. Now points per game, that matters. West Virginia having being ranked 15, Arizona State being unranked, West Virginia having less losses, that all does matter. So I think West Virginia will beat Arizona State tomorrow. Washington Huskies versus UCLA Bruins. This is part of the quarterfinals of the Big Ten tournament. Washington's unranked 21-9 record. UCLA's 2-nation 28-1 record. For stats, UCLA has more points per game. Washington has more points against. UCLA has a higher field goal percentage, has more rebounds per game, assists per game, blocks per game, and steals per game. The only stat that's really a big difference is points per game. Say a 13.4 difference in favor of UCLA. So, this game, being part of Big Ten tournaments in Indianapolis, Indiana, home field advantage is not going to matter. Points per game does matter. So I think UCLA will beat Washington tomorrow. Ohio State Buckeyes versus Minnesota Gophers. This is part of the quarterfinals of the Big Ten tournament. Ohio State's 11 nation, 25-6 record. Minnesota's 19 nation, 22-7 record. For stats, Ohio State has more points per game, points against, higher field goal percentage. Minnesota has more rebounds per game. Ohio State has more assists per game, blocks per game, and steals per game. These stats are pretty close. Indianapolis, Indiana, not that far, I don't think. I mean, probably decent distance for both teams, but not too far. So, how close it is, like, I'd say biggest thing, the rankings, Ohio State being ranked higher, having less losses and more wins. So I think Ohio State will beat Minnesota tomorrow. Illinois fighting Illini versus Iowa Hawkeyes. This is part of the quarterfinals of the Big Ten tournament. So Illinois is unranked, 21-10 record. Iowa's 9-nation, 24-5 record. For stats, Iowa has more points per game. Illinois has more points against. Iowa has a higher field goal percentage and has more rebounds per game, assists per game, blocks per game, steals per game. So, this is in Indianapolis, Indiana. Now, Illinois is probably a little closer. Now, I don't think it'll matter much. I mean, so Iowa being 9-nation, having more wins, less losses, that'll definitely matter. So I think Iowa will beat Illinois tomorrow. Kentucky Wildcats versus South Carolina Gamecocks. This is part of the quarterfinals of the SEC tournament. Kentucky is 17-nation, 23-9 record. South Carolina's 3-nation, 29-2 record. So, this is part of the SEC tournament. So this is in Greenville, South Carolina. So basically a home game for the Gamecocks. So for stats, South Carolina has more points per game. Kentucky has more points against. South Carolina has a higher field goal percentage. It has more rebounds per game, assists per game. Kentucky has more blocks per game, and South Carolina has more steals per game. The only stat that was a really big difference was points per game. It's a 11.2 difference in favor of South Carolina. So with that and the home field advantage, I think South Carolina will beat Kentucky tomorrow. Columbus Sooners versus LSU Tigers. This is part of the quarterfinals of the SEC tournament. Oklahoma's 7-nation, 24-6 record. LSU 6-nation, 26-4 record. So for stats, LSU has more points per game. Oklahoma has more points against. LSU has a higher field goal percentage and has more rebounds per game. Oklahoma has more assists per game, and LSU has more blocks per game. This is in Greenville, South Carolina. South Carolina, I don't think home field advantage will matter really here. So, these stats are pretty close. So, with, LSU having more points per game, less points against, and being higher ranked, having more wins, less losses, I think LSU will beat Oklahoma tomorrow. Miss Rebels versus Vanderbilt Commodores. This is part of the quarterfinals of the SEC tournament. Ole Miss is 24 in nation, 22-10 record. Vandy is 5 in nation, 27-3 record. For stats, Vanderbilt has more points per game, points against, higher field goal percentage. Ole Miss has more rebounds per game. Vandy has more assists per game. Ole Miss has more blocks per game, and Vandy has more steals per game. These stats are pretty close. So yeah, this is in Greenville, South Carolina. Let's see home field advantage. I don't think will matter here. I think what will end up mattering is Vandy having higher rank, less losses, more wins. So I think Vanderbilt will beat Ole Miss tomorrow. NBA. Miami Heat versus Charlotte Hornets. The Heat have a 32.2% chance to win. The Hornets have a 67.8% chance to win. This is at Charlotte. For injuries for the Heat, Fontecchio, Jovic, and Power out, and Rozier's out for a non-injury reason. For the Hornets, Salon is out. So for stats, Heat have more points per game, points against, field goal percentage is even. Miami has more rebounds per game, assists per game. Hornets have more blocks per game, and Heat have more steals per game. These stats are pretty close, so I think home field advantage is going to be a big thing here. So I think the Hornets will beat the Heat tomorrow. New York Knicks versus the Denver Nuggets. The Knicks have a 53.7% chance to win, and the Nuggets have a 46.3% chance to win. This is at Denver. For injuries, for the Knicks, Hart's a game time decision, and McBride is out. For the Nuggets, Johnson, Jones, Gordon, and Watson are out. For stats, Nuggets have more points per game, points against, higher field goal percentage. Knicks have more rebounds per game. Nuggets have more assists per game. Blocks per game is even. And Knicks have more steals per game. These stats are pretty close, so I think home field advantage is going to be a big thing here. So I think the Nuggets will beat the Knicks tomorrow. And that's it for picks. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to my picks. Do you agree with them? Do you not? If you have different picks, you can put them in the comments. But other than that, please like, subscribe, and all that. Thank you for listening, and look forward to the next video.